Elena Park, 29 years old. And 3 hours ago, my ex-fiancé walked into my presentation without warning, sat in the front row and smiled at me like the last 5 years never happened. He didn't text first, didn't ask permission. Just showed up at the biggest pitch of my career like he had every right to be. There, like he hadn't disappeared the night before our wedding, with nothing but a voicemail that said, "I can't do this." The projector light caught his face. Same dark eyes. Same slight tilt of his head when he was pretending to listen, but actually analyzing everything. All I managed to say was, "Welcome." But when I said welcome, what I really meant was, you have no idea what you just walked into, and by the time you figure it out, everything you thought you knew about why I let you go will be shattered. If you've ever wondered what happens when the person who destroyed you finally shows up demanding answers, stay with me, because what I'm about to tell him will change both our lives forever. They had no idea that the breakup they thought they understood was built on a lie I've been carrying alone for 5 years. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the presentation clicker with both palms. The conference room at Chen & Associates held 43 people. I'd counted them twice while setting up. 43 potential clients, investors, and industry leaders who could break my architectural firm, and Daniel Huang, 44. As I was saying, I continued, my voice steadier than I felt, sustainable. Urban housing doesn't have to sacrifice aesthetic integrity for environmental responsibility. I clicked to the next slide. My design for the Riverside Commons project filled the screen, all clean lines. And green spaces, solar panels integrated so seamlessly they look like part of the building's skin. 3 years of work. Everything I'd built since I stopped building a life with him. Daniel leaned forward. He was wearing a charcoal suit I didn't recognize, more expensive than anything he'd owned when we were together. His hair was shorter. Professional. The boy who used to show up to my apartment at 2 in the morning with convenience store kimbap and architectural magazines had been replaced by someone who looked like he belonged in this room, maybe more than I did. The construction cost per unit, someone called out from the back. How does it compare to traditional builds? I had the numbers memorized. Had practiced this presentation 67 times in my bathroom mirror. Initial investment is approximately 18% higher, but operational. Costs over 20 years show a net savings of 32%, not including the increased property values in surrounding areas. Daniel's pen moved across. His notepad, he was taking notes on my presentation, like he was actually here for business. The presentation lasted 45 minutes. I didn't look at him again, not directly, but I felt every second of his attention like a physical weight pressing against my chest, making it harder to breathe. When I finished, the applause was polite, professional, the kind that meant they were interested but not convinced. I needed convinced. My firm had exactly 4 months of operating capital left, and this project was supposed to be the one that changed everything. Excellent work, Ms. Park, Margaret Chen said, standing. She was the senior partner, the one whose approval I needed most. We'll be in touch within the week. Within the week meant no. Within the week meant they were going to consider other options, other architects, other people who didn't have ex-fiancés showing up and throwing them off their game. The room emptied in clusters. Conversations about lunch plans and afternoon meetings. I started packing up my laptop, my hands still unsteady when I heard his voice. Elena. 5 years. 5 years since I'd heard him say my name like that, soft and careful, like it might break if he wasn't gentle enough. I didn't turn around, just kept coiling the projector cable, loop after loop, focusing on making each circle perfect. You shouldn't be here. I work for Chen & Associates now. His footsteps came closer. I'm a structural engineer on their development team. I didn't know you were pitching today. I swear I didn't know. The cable slipped from my fingers. You work here. Started 6 months ago. Elena, I don't. I finally looked at him. Up close, I could see the differences time had carved. Fine lines at the corners of his eyes. A small scar on his left cheekbone that hadn't been there before. Don't do this here. Then where? His voice dropped lower. You blocked my number. Returned my letters unopened. I tried, Elena. For 2 years, I tried to explain what. The words came out sharper than I intended. Explain why you left a voicemail at 11:47 at night saying you couldn't marry me? Explain why you disappeared for 3 days while I had to tell 200. Guess the wedding was canceled? Explain why the man who said he'd love me forever couldn't even do it face to. Face? Someone cleared their throat behind us. A cleaning staff member waiting to reset the room. Daniel's jaw tightened. Coffee, 1 hour. The place on 5th Street, the one you used to. I don't go there anymore. Then somewhere else. Anywhere. Please. He pulled out a business card, set it on the table between us. My number's the same. It's always been the same. He left before I could respond. The card sat there, cream-colored with embossed lettering. Daniel Huang, structural engineer, Chen and Associates. A phone number I used to know by heart. I picked it up, put it in my pocket. Hated myself for not throwing it away. The thing about running into your ex is that everyone tells you it'll happen eventually. They say you'll be prepared. That time will have created enough distance that seeing them will feel like looking at a stranger. They're wrong. I drove back to my office in silence, the radio off, my mind replaying every second of that conference room. The way he'd looked at my designs, the way he'd said my name, the way he'd claimed he tried to explain. What explanation could possibly matter after 5 years? My office was a converted block in the Arts District, the kind of space that looked more successful than it actually was. Exposed brick, high ceilings, my drafting table positioned to catch the afternoon light. I'd signed the lease 3 years ago, right after my first major commission, back when I thought I was building something that would last. My assistant, Priya, looked up from her desk when I walked in. How did it go? He was there. She didn't need to ask who. Daniel? I nodded, dropping my back on the vintage leather couch I'd found at Ian. Estate sale. He works for them now. Structural engineer. Oh my God, Priya stood up, her bracelets jangling. Did you know? Did he know you were pitching? No and no. Apparently. I pulled out his business card, stared at it like it might reveal secrets. He wants to meet. To explain. Are you going to? That was the question, wasn't it? The smart answer was no. The healthy answer was no. The answer that protected the life I'd carefully rebuilt was absolutely, definitely no. I don't know, I said. Priya studied me with the kind of look that came from 3 years of friendship and too many late nights working on proposals together. What do you want to know? Everything. The word came out before I could stop. Nothing. I don't know. Does it even matter anymore? You're still wearing the necklace. My hand went automatically to my throat, to the delicate silver chain with its tiny architectural compass pendant. Daniel had given it to me the day I got accepted to graduate school. It's just a necklace. Elena, it matches everything. It's practical. You're a terrible liar. She sat on the edge of my drafting table. Look, I don't know what happened between you two. You've never told me the whole story. But I do know that you've spent 5 years building a life that looks perfect from the outside and feels empty from the inside. That's not. When's the last time you went on a date? I've been busy. When's the last time you let yourself want something that wasn't about work? I didn't have an answer for that. Priya's expression softened. I'm not saying you should forgive him. I'm not even saying you should meet him. But maybe you should ask yourself what you're actually afraid of. She left me, alone in the office, the afternoon sun stretching long shadows across my drafting table. I pulled out my phone, looked at the business card, typed in the number I'd deleted 5 years ago. The cursor blinked in the message field. What would I even say? Why did you leave? Why did you come back? Why couldn't you love me enough to stay? I deleted the number without sending anything. But here's what I didn't tell Priya. What I haven't told anyone. I knew why Daniel left, or at least I thought I did. The night before our wedding, I'd made a choice. A terrible, necessary choice that I thought would protect him. I told him something that wasn't true, something designed to make him leave, because staying would have destroyed him in ways he couldn't understand. I'd lied to save him, and he believed me. For 5 years, I'd lived with that lie, had built my entire life around the assumption that he'd moved on, that he'd found someone else. that he'd forgotten. About the girl who broke his heart the night before they were supposed to. Promise forever. But the way he looked at me in that conference room, the desperation in his voice when he asked to explain, that wasn't the look of someone who'd moved on. That was the look of someone who'd been carrying their own secrets. What if I'd been wrong? What if the lie I'd told to protect him had actually destroyed something that could have survived the truth? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was short. I know you probably won't respond, but I need you to know that leaving you was the hardest thing I've ever done, and not a day has gone by that I haven't regretted it. If you give me 1 hour, I'll tell you everything. And then, if you want, I'll disappear again. You'll never have to see me. I promise. The coffee shop on 5th, tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'll be there whether you come or not. I read it 7 times, deleted it, restored it from deleted messages, read it again. The coffee shop on 5th Street was where we'd had our first date, where he'd nervously spilled his Americano all over the table and I'd laughed so hard and snorted, which made him laugh, which made me fall just a little bit in love with him right there. It was also where I'd gone every morning for 6 months after the wedding that never happened, ordering the same drink, sitting at the same table, hoping he'd walk through the door and tell me it was all a mistake. He never did. I stopped going after that. Couldn't bear the hope anymore. And now he wanted to meet me there. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. I looked at the clock. It was 4:37 p.m. That gave me 16 hours and 23 minutes to decide whether I was brave enough to hear the truth or stupid enough to let him break my heart again. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, the one I'd moved into specifically because it had no memories of him. Everything in my life for the past 5 years had been carefully curated to erase him. New apartment, new furniture, new career focus, new version of myself that didn't need anyone, except I'd kept the necklace. And I'd kept the photo, the one I told myself I'd thrown away, but it actually hidden in the back of my closet behind a winter coats I never wore in LA's mild climate. At 3 a.m. I got up and found it. Daniel and me at the beach, his arm around my shoulders, both of us laughing at something his sister had said. We looked so young, so certain that love was enough, so completely unprepared for how complicated life could get. I traced the edge of his face in the photo. What happened to us? I whispered to the empty room. The photo didn't answer. At 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went for a run. The streets were quiet, just the early morning joggers and the people heading home from night shifts. I ran until my legs burned and my lungs ached and I couldn't think about anything except putting one foot in front of the other. It didn't help. By 8:15, I was showered, dressed, and standing in front of my closet, trying to decide what you wear to meet the ex-fiancé who destroyed you. Professional? Casual? The dress he used to love? No, definitely not that. That would send the wrong message. What message did I want to send? I settled on jeans and a simple black sweater, armor disguised as casual wear. At 8:45, I was in my car, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. Parked 3 blocks from the coffee shop. I could still leave. Could text him that I wasn't coming. Could maintain the walls I'd spent 5 years building. The Priya's question echoed in my head. What are you actually afraid of? The truth was, I was afraid of everything. Afraid of hearing his explanation and having it not be enough. Afraid of hearing his explanation and having it change everything. Afraid that the lie I'd told had been for nothing. Afraid that it had been for everything. Afraid that I'd never stopped loving him and that 1 hour in a coffee shop would prove it. At 8:57, I walked through the door. The shop looked exactly the same. Same mismatched furniture. Same chalkboard menu. Same smell of espresso and cinnamon. Even the barista looked familiar, though I couldn't remember her name. Daniel was already there, sitting at our table by the window. 2 cups in front of him. He stood when he saw me, and I watched him make the decision not to hug me, his arms starting to rise and then falling back to his sides. You came, he said, and his voice was full of something that sounded like relief and fear mixed together. I came, I agreed. You have 1 hour. We sat down. He pushed one of the cups toward me. Vanilla latte, extra shot, light foam. My drink. He'd remembered my drink. I wrapped my hands around the cup, but didn't drink. You said you wanted to explain. I do. But first, I need to ask you something." He leaned forward, his eyes searching. "Mine." "That night, the night before the wedding, when you told me you'd been cheating on me with your colleague from the firm, was it true?" The world tilted. 5 years. 5 years I'd lived with that lie, had let him believe I'd betrayed him, had carried the weight of his hatred because it was easier than the truth. And now he was asking if it was real. My throat was so tight I could barely breathe. "Why are you asking me that now?" "Because I saw Marcus Chen at an industry conference last year, your colleague, the one he said you'd been sleeping with." Daniel's hands were shaking around his coffee cup, and when I mentioned your name, he had no idea who you were. Said he'd never worked with anyone named Elena Park. Said he'd been with the same partner for 8 years. Oh, God! Oh, God, he knew. "So I'm asking you again," Daniel said, and his voice cracked on the words. "Was it true? Did you cheat on me? Or did you lie to make me leave?" The question hung between us like a blade, and I had to decide right here, right now, whether to keep lying or to finally tell him the truth that had been destroying me for 5 years. I set down the coffee cup, looked him directly in the eyes, and said the words I'd sworn I'd never say. I lied. The words landed between us like stones dropping into still water, ripples spreading outward, disturbing everything. Daniel's face went through a series of expressions I couldn't read. Shock, confusion, something that might have been anger or might have been pain. "You lied." "Yes. For 5 years, I thought." He stopped, pressed his palms against his eyes. "For 5 years, I hated you. I hated myself for not seeing it. I hated that I still loved you anyway." "And it was all a lie?" "Yes." "Why?" The word came out raw. "Why would you do that?" This was the part I'd never wanted to explain. The part that made me look like a martyr or a fool or both. That I'd started this, and he deserved the truth. All of it. "Do you remember your mother's diagnosis?" I asked quietly. His hands dropped from his face. "What does that have to do with everything?" "It has everything to do with everything." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm coffee shop. "She was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer 6 weeks before our wedding. Do you remember what she said when you told her we might postpone?" Daniel's expression shifted. "She said she'd never forgive us if we changed our plans because of her." She said more than that. She said she'd been waiting her whole life to see you get married, that it was the one thing she needed to see before. I couldn't finish that sentence. She was so happy, Daniel, so excited. And the doctor said she had maybe a year, probably less. I remember. His voice was barely above a whisper. What you don't remember, because you weren't there, was the conversation I had with her 3 days before the wedding. I could still see it so clearly. The hospital room with its sterile white walls and beeping machines. Mrs. Wong in the bed, looking so much smaller than she had just weeks before. Her hair already thinning from the first round of chemo. She asked me to sit down, I continued. Said she needed to tell me something important. And then she told me about your father. Daniel went very still. She told me that your father had early onset Alzheimer's, that he'd been diagnosed at 43, the same age you'd be in 14. Years, that it ran in families, that there was a genetic component. I watched his face, saw the moment. Understanding started to dawn. She told me that she'd never told you because she didn't want you to live your life in fear, but she thought I should know, thought I deserved to know what I might be signing up for. She had no right. She had every right. She was dying, and she was trying to protect both of us. I leaned forward, but then she said something else. She said that if I truly loved you, I'd make sure you lived your life fully, that you'd chase your dreams, that you wouldn't spend your best years taking care of sick people. Daniel's jaw clenched. You're saying she asked you to leave me? No. She asked me to make sure you didn't sacrifice yourself. I took a shaky breath. But I knew you, Daniel. I knew that if we got married and then she got sicker, you'd put your career on. Hold to take care of her. You'd already started talking about taking a leave from the firm, about moving back home, about being there for her. Of course I was. She was my mother, and you were 27 years old with a job offer from The best structural engineering firm in Seoul. Your dream job. The one you'd been working towards since undergraduate. I felt tears starting to burn behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. If we'd gotten married, you would have turned it down. You would have stayed in LA. You would have watched your mother die, and then you would have spent the rest of your life wondering what you'd given up. That was my choice to make. No, my voice broke. I know it was. But I also knew that if I asked you to choose between me and your dreams, you'd choose me, and you'd resent me for it eventually. Maybe not right away. Maybe not for years. But one day, you'd look at me and wonder what your life could have been. Throughout, the coffee shop sounds faded into background noise. The hiss of the espresso machine. The murmur of other conversations. The clink of cups on saucers. None of it mattered. There was only this table, this moment, this truth I'd been carrying alone. So you made the choice for me, Daniel said slowly. You decided I couldn't handle the complexity of loving you and pursuing my career and taking care of my mother. You decided I was too weak or too stupid or too good. The words came out, fierce. You were too good, Daniel, too loyal, too willing to sacrifice everything for the people you love, and I couldn't let you sacrifice yourself. Not for me. So you told me you'd been cheating. You let me think you'd betrayed me. You let me hate you. His voice was rising now, drawing glances from other customers. You destroyed us to save me? Yes. That's the most arrogant, self-righteous, idiotic thing I've ever heard. I know. You had no right, I know. I loved you. He was standing now, his chair scraping back. I loved you more than anything, and you threw it away because you thought you knew what was best for me? Yes. I stood too, facing him across the small table, because I loved you more than anything too. And sometimes love means letting go. That's not love. That's cowardice. The word hit like a slap. Maybe because it was true. You're right, I said quietly. It was cowardice. I was terrified of watching you give up everything for me. Terrified of becoming the person you resented. Terrified of not being enough to make up for everything you'd lose. So I made sure you'd leave. I made sure you'd hate me enough to go to Seoul and take that job and build the life you deserved. And what about the life you deserved? His voice dropped. Back down, but the intensity didn't fade. What about what you wanted? I wanted you to be happy. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I spent 3 years in Seoul working 18-hour days because it was easier. Then going home to an empty apartment and remembering what I'd lost. I threw myself into my career because it was the only thing that didn't remind me of you. And you think that was better? I didn't have an answer for that. Daniel sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. My mother died 7 months after the wedding that never happened. Did you know that? I heard. I'm so sorry. I came back for the funeral. I looked for you. I don't even know what I wanted. To yell at you. To ask you why. To see if there was any chance. He shook his head. But you weren't there. I couldn't be there. Your family hated me. They thought I'd broken your heart right when you needed support the most. They did hate you. My sister wouldn't even say your name for 2 years. He looked up at me. That my mother's last words to me were about you. My breath caught. What? She said, find Elena. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she was wrong. Danielle's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I didn't understand what she meant. I thought maybe she was confused from the medication. But now she knew what I'd done. She must have. And she wanted me to know the truth. He laughed, but it was bitter. 5 years. We've wasted 5 years because you decided to play God with our lives. I was trying to protect you. I didn't need protection. I needed you. His hand slammed down on the table, making the coffee cups jump. I needed my partner, my best friend, the person who was supposed to stand beside me through the hard things, not make decisions about what I could or couldn't handle. He was right. About all of it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 5 years. I know. We sat in silence for a long moment. The barista was definitely watching us now, probably trying to decide if she needed to intervene. Finally, Daniel spoke again, his voice calmer but no less intense. Tell me something. If I hadn't shown up at your presentation yesterday, if I hadn't tracked you down, would you ever have told me the truth? I wanted to lie. Wanted to say yes. Of course, I was planning to tell you eventually. But I'd done enough lying. No, I admitted. I thought it was kinder to let you hate me, let you move on. I thought the truth would just make everything more complicated. Kinder. He shook his head. You know what would have been kind? Trusting me. Believing that I was strong enough to make my own choices. Respecting me enough to let me decide what I could handle. Every word was a knife, and every word was deserved. You're right, I said. You're absolutely right. I was arrogant and cowardly, and I made a terrible choice. I can't take it back. I can't give you those 5 years. All I can do is tell you the truth now and hope that someday, maybe you can. Forgive me, forgive you. He laughed again, that same bitter sound. I don't even know how to process this. For 5 years, I'd been carrying this story in my head. The story of how the woman I loved betrayed me. How I wasn't enough to keep her faithful. How I missed the signs. That story shaped everything I did. Every relationship I tried to have. Every time I started to trust someone. And now you're telling me that story was fiction? Yes. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? To find out that the worst thing that ever happened to you was manufactured? That the pain you've been carrying was based on a lie? I did know, because I'd been carrying my own pain. The pain of watching him leave. The pain of knowing I'd caused it. The pain of wondering every single day if I'd made the right choice. I know I hurt you, I said. I know I broke your trust in a way that might be irreparable. But I need you to understand that I didn't do it lightly. I didn't do it because I didn't love you. I did it because I loved you so much that I was willing to become the villain in your story if it meant you got to be the hero in your own. Daniel stared at me for a long moment. Then he stood up, pulled out his wallet, and dropped a $20 bill on the table. I need time, he said. I need to think about this. About all of this. Okay, I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we can fix this. I'm just saying I need time. I understand. He started to leave, then turned back. One more question. That night when you told me you'd been cheating, you cried. You looked devastated. Was that fake too? No. The word came out choked. That was the most real thing I've ever felt. Watching you leave, knowing I'd caused it, knowing I'd never be able to take it. Back that destroyed me. He nodded slowly. Good. Because you should know what it feels like to lose everything. Then he walked out, leaving me alone at our table with 2 cups of coffee going cold. I sat there for 20 minutes after he left, unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything except replay the conversation over and over in my head. He knew. After 5 years, he finally knew the truth. And he hated me even more than before. Maybe that was what I deserved. My phone buzzed. Priya, how did it go? I typed back. I told him everything. And hand left. Are you okay? Was I okay? I just confessed to the biggest lie of my life. I'd watched the man I'd never stopped loving walk away from me for the second time. I'd ripped open wounds that had barely started to heal. No, I typed, but I will be. I hope that was true. The thing about truth is that it doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just shows you exactly how trapped you've been all along. I drove back to my office in a daze. Priya took one look at my face and made me tea. I didn't drink. She didn't ask questions. Just sat with me while I stared at my drafting table and tried to figure out how to move forward. My phone rang at 2 p.m. Margaret Chen, Ms. Park, she said, her voice professionally neutral. I wanted to follow up on your presentation yesterday. Here it comes. I thought the rejection. The final nail in the coffin of a truly terrible 24 hours. We were very impressed with your proposal, she continued. However, we have some concerns about the structural integrity of the design, particularly cantilevered sections on the east side. We'd like to schedule a follow-up meeting with you and our structural engineering team to address these issues. Of course, I managed. When were you thinking? Friday morning, 9 a.m. I'll have Daniel Huang lead the technical review since he's most familiar with sustainable construction methods. Of course she would. That works for me, I lied. Excellent. We'll send over the specific concerns by end of day tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing how you address them. She hung up. I looked at Priya. I have to work with Daniel on the project. Oh no. Oh yes. I dropped my head into my hands. This is a nightmare. Maybe it's an opportunity, Priya offered, to show him you're professional, to prove you can work together despite the history. Or it's the universe's way of punishing me for lying to him for 5 years. That too. The email from Chen and Associates arrived at 4:47 p.m. Detailed technical questions about load-bearing calculations material, specifications, and seismic safety factors, all legitimate concerns. All things that would require close collaboration with their structural engineering team, with Daniel. I spent that evening going through every calculation, every specification, every detail of my design, looking for weaknesses, looking for ways to strengthen the proposal, looking for anything that would make Friday's meeting less of a disaster. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I've reviewed your proposal. The structural concerns are valid but solvable. If you're willing to make some modifications to the cantilever design, I think we can make this work, professionally speaking. Daniel. I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. Thank you. I'm open to modifications. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Good. I'll prepare some alternative approaches for Friday's meeting. We should probably meet beforehand to align on the technical details. Wednesday afternoon, he was offering an olive branch. Or at least a professional courtesy. Wednesday works. Where? My office. 3 p.m. I'll send you the address. Okay. The dots appeared one more time. Elena, yes, this doesn't mean I've forgiven you. This is about the project. Nothing more. I understand. Good. The conversation ended there. Professional. Distant. Nothing like the way we used to text each other, long rambling messages full of inside jokes and random observations and constant affirmations of love. But it was something, a starting point, a way forward that didn't involve complete avoidance. I take it. Wednesday arrived faster than I wanted. I spent Tuesday night preparing technical documents, running calculations, and trying not to think about the fact that I'd be alone in an office with Daniel. For the first time since the coffee shop confrontation, his office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel and expensive. Minimalism. The receptionist directed me to the 14th floor, where Daniel's name was, listed on a door at the end of the hall. I knocked at 2:59 p.m. Come in. He was standing at a large desk covered in blueprints and structural models. The office was neat, organized, with framed certifications on the walls and a window that overlooked the city. Professional, successful. Everything his mother had wanted for him. Everything I'd sacrificed us for. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair. I've been working on some alternative approaches to the cantilever issue. We spent the next 2 hours deep in technical discussion, load calculations, material alternatives, design modifications that would maintain the aesthetic while improving, structural integrity. It was almost like old times, the way we'd used to work together on projects in graduate school, finishing each other's sentences, building on each other's ideas, except we were careful not to touch, careful not to let our hands brush when reaching for the same blueprint, careful to maintain professional distance. At 5 p.m., we had a solution, a modified design that addressed all of Chen and Associates' concerns while actually improving the overall structure. This is good, Daniel said, studying the revised plans. This is really good. Margaret will be impressed. We make a good team, I said without thinking. The words hung in the air between us. We did, he corrected quietly. Past tense. Right. Sorry, he started rolling up the blueprints. Elena, I've been thinking about what you said. About why you lied. My heart started beating faster. And I understand why you did it. I don't agree with it. I think it was wrong. But I understand the logic. He looked up at me. My mother was manipulative sometimes. She had this way of making you feel like you were doing the right thing even. When you weren't, she probably made you feel like lying to me was noble. Self-sacrificing. She didn't make me do anything. I made that choice, but she planted the seed. He set down the blueprints. I've been angry at you for 5 years, and I'm still angry. But I'm also angry at her for putting you in that position, for telling you about my father's illness without telling me first, for making you feel like you had to protect me. She was dying. She was scared. She was controlling. His voice was firm. She loved me, but she was controlling. And I'm starting to realize that a lot of the choices I made, the career path I took, the way I lived my life, a lot of that was about living up to her. Expectations, even after she died. This was new. This was Daniel questioning things he'd never questioned before. "What are you saying?" I asked carefully. "I'm saying that maybe we were both victims of circumstances we didn't fully understand. You were trying to do what you thought was right. I was trying to be the son she wanted me to be, and we both lost something precious because of it. Does that mean it?" "Doesn't mean anything yet," he interrupted. "It just means I'm trying to process 5 years of pain and anger and confusion. It means I'm trying to separate what I feel about what you did from what I feel about you. And what do you feel about me?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know yet. Ask me again after Friday's meeting." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't hatred either. It was possibility, and for now, that was enough. Friday's meeting went better than I could have hoped. Daniel presented our revised structural approach with the kind of confidence that made it impossible to doubt. Margaret Chen and her team asked tough questions, but we had answers for all of them. By the end of the 2-hour session, they'd approved the project pending final. Contract negotiations. I'd done it. My firm was saved. "Excellent work, both of you," Margaret said, gathering her materials. "Daniel, I'd like you to serve as the primary structural consultant on this project. Ms. Park, you'll be working closely with him throughout the construction phase. I trust that won't be a problem?" We both said no problem at the same time, which would have been funny if it wasn't so complicated. After everyone else left, Daniel and I stood in the conference room alone. "Again, congratulations," he said. "You earned this. We earned this. I couldn't have addressed those concerns without your help. That's what consultants are for." He started packing up his laptop. "I meant what I said on Wednesday. We work well together. Professionally." There was that word again. Professionally. A boundary line drawn in the sand. "Daniel, I should go. I have another meeting." He headed for the door, then paused. "But Elena, I'm glad you got the project. You're a brilliant architect. You deserve success." He left before I could respond. Over the next 3 weeks, Daniel and I fell into a routine. Weekly meetings to coordinate on the Riverside Commons project. Emails about technical specifications. Phone calls about contractor bids. All professional, all carefully neutral. And slowly, carefully, we started to remember how to be around each other. It started small, a joke about a contractor's ridiculous timeline estimate. A shared eye roll when Margaret went on a 15-minute tangent about sustainable landscaping. A moment when we both reached for the same pen and our hands touched and we didn't immediately pull away like we'd been burned. Small things. But they added up. "You changed your coffee order," Daniel observed one morning when I showed up too. "A meeting with a cold brew instead of my usual vanilla latte." "People change," I said. "Not you. You're a creature of habit. You've ordered the same coffee for as long as I've known you." "Maybe you don't know me as well as you think." He studied me for a moment. "Maybe I don't. Tell me something I don't know about you. Something that's changed in 5 years." I thought about it. "I learned to cook. Real cooking, not just ramen and scrambled eggs. I can make a decent bulgogi now. And kimchi jjigae. Your mother must be thrilled." "She is." She stopped making passive-aggressive comments about me starving to death. I smiled. "What about you? What's changed?" "I got a dog, a rescue. His name is Mochi." "You have a dog?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "You always said you were too busy for pets." I was lonely. The admission came. Out quiet. After my mother died, the apartment was too quiet. Mochi helps. Something in my chest ached. I'm glad you have him. You should meet him sometime. He's very judgmental. You'd get along. It was a joke, but it was also an invitation. A small one, carefully casual, but an invitation nonetheless. I'd like that, I said. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd been working late at my office, finalizing the interior design. Specifications for Riverside Commons. It was almost 9 p.m. when I realized I'd left a crucial set of material samples at Daniel's office from our meeting that afternoon. I needed them for a presentation the next morning. I texted him, "I'm so sorry, but I think I left the material samples in your conference room. Any chance you're still at the office?" His response came immediately. "Just leaving now? I can drop them off if you want." "Where are you?" "My office. But you don't have to. I'm 5 minutes away." "See you soon." He arrived 12 minutes later, carrying the sample case and 2 bags of takeout. "You haven't eaten, have you?" he said, setting everything on my desk. "How did you know?" "Because it's 9 p.m. and you're still working and you never. Remember to eat when you're focused on a project." He unpacked the bags. "Kimchi jjigae from that place on 6th. I figured if you learn to cook it, you must like it." I stared at the food, then at him. "Daniel, it's just dinner, Elena, between colleagues." "Don't read into it." But I was reading into it, because the Daniel I'd known 5 years ago would have done exactly this. Would have noticed I was working late and brought food without being asked. Would have remembered my favorite dishes and the way I forgot to take care of myself when I was stressed. The Daniel who hated me wouldn't do this. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, sitting on opposite sides of my drafting table. The jjigae was perfect, spicy and warm and exactly what I needed. "This is really good," I said. "It's from the same restaurant we used to go to." "They're still there. Still making the best stew in the city." "You still go there?" He shrugged. "Sometimes. When I'm feeling nostalgic." "Nostalgic for what?" The question came out before I could stop it. Too personal. Too direct. Daniel set down his spoon. For when things were simple. When we were just 2 people who loved each other and thought that was enough. It should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because life is complicated and people make choices, and sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the damage those choices cause. We sat with that truth for a moment. "Do you ever wonder," I asked quietly, "what would have happened if I'd told you the truth that night? If I'd said, 'Your mother told me about your father's illness and I'm scared of what that means for us, but I want to face it together every day.'" His voice was rough. "Every single day for 5 years, I've wondered what our life would have looked like if you trusted me enough to tell me the truth. I did trust you. That's not why you didn't trust me to make the right choice. You didn't trust me to handle the complexity. You didn't trust that I could love you and pursue my career and take care of my mother all at the same time." He stood up, started pacing. "You made a decision about my life without me. That's not trust, Elena. That's control. I was trying to protect you. I didn't need protection. I needed a partner." His voice rose. "I needed someone who would stand beside me and say, 'This is hard, but we'll figure it out together.' Instead, you decided you knew better. You decided I was too weak or too stupid or too good." I stood up too, facing him. "You were too good, Daniel. Too selfless. You would have given up everything for me, and I couldn't let you do that. That was my choice to make, and I made a different choice. I chose to let you go so you could have the life you deserved. The life I deserved?" He laughed bitterly. "The life I deserved was with you. Building a home together, supporting each other through the hard times, growing old together. That's what I wanted. That's what I've wanted for 5 years, even when I hated you. Even when I tried to move on, even when I told myself I was better off without you." The word hung in the air between us, raw and honest and terrifying. "Daniel, I'm still in love with you." He said it like a confession, like an accusation. "I've tried not to be. I've dated other people. I throw myself into work. I've done everything I can to get over you. And I can't. I'm still in love with you, and I hate that I am because you broke my heart and lied to me and made choices about my life without my consent. But I can't stop loving you." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare at him and try to process what he'd just said. I'm still in love with you too, I whispered. Don't? He held up a hand. Don't say that unless you mean it. Unless you're ready to actually trust me this time. Unless you're willing to let me make my own choices. Even if you don't agree. With them. I mean it. I've never stopped loving you. Not for a single day in 5 years. Then why? His voice cracked. Why did you let me go? Why didn't you fight for us? Because I was scared. The admission came out. Broken. I was scared that if we stayed together, you'd wake up one day and realize you'd given up too much, that you'd resent me, that I'd become the person who held you back instead of the person who lifted you up. And I couldn't bear that. I couldn't bear the thought of you looking at me with regret. So instead, you made sure I'd look at you with hatred. Yes, because hatred is clean. Hatred is simple. Hatred meant you could move on. But I didn't move on. He was shouting now. I carried you with me everywhere I went. Every building I designed, I thought about what you'd say about it. Every city I visited, I wondered if you'd like it. Every woman I dated, I compared her to you and found her lacking. You didn't set me free, Elena. You just made sure I'd be miserable without you. I'm sorry. Tears were streaming down my face now. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible choice. I hurt you in ways I can never fix. But I did it because I loved you, and I thought it was the only way to save you. Save me from what? From me, the words burst out. From being tied to someone whose mother died young, whose father might have genetic health issues, whose career was just starting and might fail. From all the uncertainty and fear and potential pain. I wanted you to have a clean start, a fresh beginning. A life without all my baggage. Daniel stared at me. You're an idiot. What? You're an idiot if you think I cared about any of that. I didn't fall in love with your perfect life circumstances. I fell in love with you, your brilliant mind, your terrible jokes. The way you'd get so focused on a design that you'd forget the rest of the world existed. The way you'd cry at sad movies but pretend you weren't. The way you'd always order too much food because you wanted to try everything. He stepped closer. I fell in love with you, Elena. All of you. Including the complicated parts. Including the scary parts. Including the parts you thought weren't good enough. Daniel, and if you'd told me the truth 5 years ago, I would have said the same thing I'm going to. Say now, I don't care about the complications. I don't care about the potential problems. I don't care about anything except being with you. That's all I've ever wanted. He was standing right in front of me now, close. Enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. So here's what's going to happen, he said, his voice dropping lower. You're going to decide right now whether you trust me enough to try again, whether you're brave enough to let me make my own choices, whether you love me enough to risk being hurt. I do. I am. I'm not finished. He held up a hand. If we do this, we do it right. No more lies. No more making decisions for each other. No more sacrificing yourself because you think you know what's best. We're partners, or we're nothing. Understood? Understood? And if things get hard when things get hard we face them together. We don't run. We don't lie. We don't make unilateral decisions about our relationship. We talk. We fight if we need to, but we do it together. Yes. Okay. Yes. Say it. Say you trust me. I trust you. The words came out steady. True. I trust you to make your own choices. I trust you to know what you want. I trust you to tell me when I'm being an idiot. You're being an idiot, right? Now, what? You're standing 3 feet away from me when you should be. Kissing me. I closed the distance between us in 2 steps. His arms came around me, pulling me close, and then his lips were on mine, and it was like coming home after 5 years of being lost. The kiss was desperate and gentle and full of 5 years of longing. His hands tangled in my hair. My fingers gripped his shirt. We kissed like we were trying to make up for lost time, like we were afraid the other might disappear if we stopped. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against mine. I've missed you, he whispered. God, I've missed you so much. I've missed you too. Every day. Every single day. We have a lot to figure out. I know. This isn't going to. Be easy. I know. We're going to have to rebuild trust, relearn each other, deal with 5 years of hurt and anger, and I kissed him again, cutting off the words. I know, and I'm ready. I'm ready to do the work. I'm ready to fight for us. I'm ready to trust you. He smiled against my lips. Good, because I'm not letting you go again. Promise? We spent the rest of the night in my office talking, really talking, for the first time in 5 years, about his mother's death and the guilt he'd carried, about my loneliness and the business I'd built to fill the void, about the relationships we tried to have with other people and why they'd all failed, about what we wanted for the future. I want to meet Mochi, I said at some point around midnight, curled up against. Daniel sighed on my vintage leather couch. He's going to love you. He has terrible taste in people. Rude. Accurate. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. What else do you want? I want to try your mother's kimchi recipe. The one she never wrote down. I don't know if I remember it. We'll figure it out together. Together. He said the word like he was testing it out. I like the sound of that. Me too. What else? I thought about it. I want to design a house. Our house. Something that's just ours. With a studio for me and an office for you and a yard for Mochi. That sounds perfect. And I want to do it right this time. I want to meet your sister and apologize. I want to tell my parents the truth about what happened. I want to stop hiding and start building a real life with you. Elena Park are you asking me to be your boyfriend? I'm asking you to be my partner. And everything. He was quiet for a moment. Then, on one condition. What? If we ever get to the point where we're planning a wedding again, you have to promise me something. My heart started, beating faster. What? Promise me that if you get scared, if you start thinking you need to, protect me from something if you even consider lying to me for my own. Good, promise me you'll talk to me first. Promise me you'll trust me enough to handle the truth. I promise. I swear, Daniel. Never again. Good. He tilted my chin up, looked into my eyes. Because I meant what I said. We're partners or we're nothing. And I choose partners. I choose partners too. We sealed it with a kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. The sun was starting to rise when Daniel finally left both of us, exhausted but happier than we'd been in years. He kissed me goodbye at the door, long and slow, like he was memorizing the moment. Dinner tomorrow? He asked. I'll cook. You can meet Mochi. It's a date? A date. He grinned. Our first date in 5 years. Should I bring flowers? You should bring yourself. That's all I need. Sap. You love it. I do. He kissed me one more time. I love you. I love you too. After he left, I stood in my office watching the sunrise paint the city in shades of gold and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Did you work all night? Please tell me you at least ate something. I smiled and typed back, I ate. And Priya? Daniel and I are back together. Her response was immediate. What? I'm coming over right now. I need details. All the details. It's 6 a.m. I don't care. Details. I made coffee and waited for Priya to arrive, feeling lighter than I had in 5 years. There was still so much to figure out, so much to rebuild, so many conversations to have and apologies to make and trust to earn back. But for the first time since the night I'd lied to Daniel and watched him walk away, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. We had a second chance, and this time I wasn't going to waste it. Priya arrived 23 minutes later with bagels and an expression that demanded answers. Start from the beginning, she said, settling onto my couch. And don't leave anything out. I told her everything. The coffee shop confession, the weeks of professional collaboration, the breaking point in my office last night, the kiss, the promises we'd made. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure about this? She finally asked. I mean, I'm happy for you. But Elena, he broke your heart. You broke his heart. That's a lot of damage to overcome. I know, but I love him. I never stopped loving him. Love isn't always enough. I know that too. But this time, we're going into it with our eyes open. No more lies. No more secrets. Just honesty, even when it's hard. Priya studied me. You're different. You seem lighter. I feel lighter. Like I've been carrying this weight for 5 years and I finally got to put it down. Just promise me something, she said. Promise me you'll protect yourself too. Don't lose yourself in trying to make up for the past. I promise, she hugged. Me, that I'm happy for you. You deserve this. You both do. That evening I drove to Daniel's apartment with a bottle of wine and a stomach full of butterflies. It felt surreal, like I was stepping into an alternate timeline where the last 5 years hadn't happened, but they had happened. And we both carried the scars. Daniel opened the door before I could knock, and immediately a small white dog launched himself at my legs, tail wagging frantically. Mochi, down, Daniel said, but he was laughing. Sorry, he's excited. He doesn't get many visitors. I crouched down, letting Mochi sniff my hands, before scratching behind his ears. Hi, Mochi. I've heard a lot about you. The dog licked my face enthusiastically. He likes you, Daniel observed. That's a good sign. He hated my last girlfriend. You had a girlfriend? The words came out before I could stop them, tinged with jealousy I had no right to feel. 2, actually. Over 5 years. Neither lasted more than 6 months. He helped me up, pulled me inside. They weren't you, Daniel. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just being honest. You wanted honesty, right? Right. I took a breath. Then I should tell you that I dated 2, 3 guys. One lasted almost a year. Something flickered across his face. What happened? He asked me to marry him, and I realized I was still wearing your necklace. I touched the compass pendant at my throat. I realized I was still in love with you. So I said no. When was this? 2 years ago? Daniel was quiet for a moment, processing. Did you love him? I cared about him. But no, I didn't love him. Not the way I love you. Okay, he nodded slowly. Okay. Thank you for telling me. Is it weird? Talking about the people we dated? Extremely weird. But also necessary, I think. We can't pretend the last 5 years didn't happen. We have to acknowledge them. He was right. We couldn't build a future on a foundation of avoidance. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Daniel had made bulgogi and banjan, and we ate at his small dining table while Moki begged for scraps. We talked about work, about the Riverside Commons project, about his sister and my parents and all the mundane details of our separate lives. It felt normal, comfortable, like we were picking up a conversation we'd paused 5 years ago. But underneath the comfort was tension, questions we hadn't asked yet, wounds we hadn't addressed. After dinner, we moved to the couch. Mochi immediately claimed the space between us, forcing us to sit closer than we might have otherwise. Smart dog, Daniel murmured, scratching Mochi's head. Very smart. I leaned against Daniel's shoulder, feeling his arm come around. Me? This is nice. It is. He pressed a kiss to my temple. But Elena, we need to talk about some things. My stomach tightened. Okay? I meant what I said last night, about doing this right. But I need you to understand what that means for me. Tell me. He took a breath. I need transparency, complete transparency. If something's bothering you, you tell me. If you're scared about something, you tell me. If you're thinking about making a major decision that affects both of us, you tell me before you make it. No more protecting me from hard truths. I can do that, and I need you to. Trust that I can handle things, that I'm strong enough to face whatever comes, that I won't break if life gets complicated. I do trust that. I know I didn't before, but I do now. How do I know that? His voice was gentle but firm. How do I know you won't make another unilateral decision the next time you think you're protecting me? It was a fair question, one I'd been asking myself. You don't, I admitted. You can't know for sure. All I can do is promise to try. To catch myself when I start falling into old patterns. To talk to you instead of making assumptions. I turned to look at him. But Daniel, I need something from you too. What? I need you to tell me when. You're angry, when you're hurt, when I've done something that bothers you. I need you to not let things build up until they explode. I can do that. And I need you to forgive me. Not right away. Not until you're ready. But eventually I need you to let go of the anger and resentment. Because I can't spend the rest of my life trying to make up for one terrible choice. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm working on it. The forgiveness part. But Elena, you have to understand what you did changed me. It made me question my judgment. It made me doubt my ability to read people. It made me wonder if I was too trusting or too naive or too, you weren't any of those things. I was just a really good liar. That doesn't make me feel better. I know. I took his hand. But I need you to know that the person I was 5 years ago, the person who thought lying was the answer, I'm not her anymore. I've spent 5 years learning to be honest with myself. Learning to face hard truths instead of running from them. Learning that protecting people from pain sometimes causes more pain than the truth ever would. How do I know you've really changed? You don't. Not yet. But I'll show you. Every day, in every choice I make, I'll show you. He squeezed my hand. Okay, I can work with that. We spent the rest of the evening watching a movie. Mochi snoring between us, our hands intertwined. It was domestic and peaceful and everything I'd dreamed about for 5 years. But when Daniel walked me to my car at 11 p.m., the tension returned. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. I'd like that. But Daniel, we should probably talk about pace, about how fast we want to move. What do you mean? I mean, 5 years ago, we were engaged. We were planning a life together. And now we're starting over, but we're not the same people we were. We need to figure out who we are now before we jump back into where we were. He nodded slowly. You're right. We should take it slow. Slow, I agreed. Get to know each other again. Date. Build trust. No pressure. No expectations. Exactly. He pulled me close, rested his forehead against mine. But Elena, just so we're clear, I already know where this is going. I already know I want forever with you. Taking it slow doesn't change that. It doesn't change it for me either. He kissed me, soft and sweet. Good. Then we're on the same page. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm, dinner twice a week, coffee dates on Saturday mornings, working together on the Riverside Commons project, slowly, carefully rebuilding what we'd lost. But it wasn't all easy. 3 weeks into our reconciliation, we had our first real fight. It started with something small. Daniel had made plans for us to have dinner with his sister without asking me. First, I thought you'd want to see her, he said when I pointed out that he should have checked with me. You said you wanted to apologize. I do want to apologize. But Daniel, you can't just make plans for me without asking. That's exactly the kind of thing we said we wouldn't do. It's just dinner. I didn't think it was a big deal. It is a big deal. Because it's about respect. About treating me like a partner who gets a say in decisions. His expression shifted. You're seriously lecturing me about making decisions without consulting my partner? The words hit like a slap. That's not fair, isn't it? You made the biggest decision of our lives without consulting me. You decided to end our relationship without giving me a choice. And now you're upset because I scheduled a dinner? That's different. How? How is it different? Because I'm trying to change. I'm trying to be better. And you're throwing my past mistakes in my face. I'm not throwing anything in. Your face. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy. We stared at each other, both breathing hard, both angry. Finally, I said, you're right, it is hypocritical, and I'm sorry. But Daniel, if we're going to make this work, you can't use my past mistakes as a weapon every time we disagree. You said you were working on forgiveness, but it doesn't feel like you've forgiven me at all. Maybe I haven't. His voice was cold. Maybe I'm still angry. Maybe I'm still hurt. Maybe I'm trying to move forward, but I can't forget what you did. Then maybe we're not ready for this. The words came out broken. Maybe we need more time. Maybe we do. He left without kissing me goodbye. I spent that night crying into Priya's shoulder, convinced I'd ruined everything again. You had a fight, Priya said, rubbing my back. Couples fight. It doesn't mean it's over. But what if he's right? What if he can't forgive me? What if we're just gonna keep hurting each other? Then you'll figure it out together. But Elena, you can't give up after one fight. Relationships are hard. They take work. And sometimes that work is painful. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are, and so is he. You just have to trust the process. Daniel texted me the next morning. Can we talk? We met at a park near his apartment. Mochi came with us, providing a buffer and a distraction. I'm sorry, Daniel said as we walked along the path. I shouldn't have thrown your past in your face. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry too. You're right that I was being hypocritical. And you're right that you're still angry. You have every right to be angry, but I don't want to be angry anymore. He stopped walking, turned to face me. I don't want to spend our relationship punishing you for something you did 5 years ago. That's not fair to either of us. So what do? I think I need to talk to someone, a therapist, someone who can help me process the anger and hurt in a healthy way, because I don't want to keep taking it out on you. That's a good idea. And maybe I should talk to someone too, about why I thought lying was the answer, about my fear of being a burden. We could do couples therapy too. If you want. I want. I took his hand. I want to do whatever it takes to make this work. Me too. He squeezed my hand. But Elena, I need you to know something. Even when I'm angry, even when I'm hurt, even when I'm throwing your past in, your face, I still love you. That hasn't changed. That's never going to change. I love you too. So much. Then we'll figure it out. Together. We sealed it with a kiss, Mochi barking his approval. The therapy helped, both individual and couple sessions. We learned how to communicate better, how to fight fair, how to recognize our triggers and patterns. We learned that healing wasn't linear, that some days were harder than others. That forgiveness was a choice you made over and over, not a one-time decision. We learned how to be partners. 2 months after our reconciliation, Daniel and I had dinner with his sister, Mina. I'd been dreading it for weeks, rehearsing my apology, preparing for her anger. She opened the door and immediately pulled me into a hug. I'm so glad you're back, she said. Daniel's been miserable without you. I'm sorry, I managed. I'm so sorry for what I did. For lying. For hurting him. For hearting him. For I know. He told me everything about your mother's diagnosis, about what she said to you, about why you thought you had to lie. She pulled back, looked me in the eyes. I'm not saying it was right, but I understand why you did it. You do? My mother was complicated. She loved us, but she was also controlling. She had very specific ideas about what our lives should look like, and she had a way of making you feel like you were doing the right thing even, when you weren't. Mina led me inside. I'm not excusing what you did, but I'm also not going to hold it against you forever. You've clearly learned from it, and Daniel loves you. That's enough for me. Dinner was easier after that. We talked about the past, but also about the future. About the Riverside Commons project. About Mina's new job. About Daniel's plans to adopt another dog. Another one? I asked. Mochi's not enough. Mochi needs a friend. And I have a big enough apartment. You're going to be that guy with 2 dogs. I'm already that guy with 1 dog. Might as well commit. Mina laughed. He's been looking at rescue sites for weeks. He's already picked one out. A senior dog that no one else wants. Of course he has. I looked at Daniel. Felt my heart swell. You're a good person. I'm a person who likes dogs. You're a person who sees. Something that needs love and gives it. That's what makes you good. He blushed, which made Mina laugh harder. After dinner, as we were leaving, Mina pulled me aside. Take care of him, she said quietly. He acts tough, but he's softer than he looks. And he loves you more than anything. I will, I promise. Good, because if you hurt him again, I'll have to kill you. She said it with a smile, but I knew she meant it, understood. She hugged me again. Welcome back to the family, Elena. 3 months after our reconciliation, the Riverside Commons project broke ground. Daniel and I stood at the construction site watching the first foundation being poured, and I felt a sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with architecture. We did it, I said. You did it. This is your design. Your vision. Our vision. I couldn't have done it without you. He put his arm around me. Partners. Partners. Margaret Chen approached us, clipboard in hand. Excellent work, both of you. This project is going to put both your firms on the map. After she left, Daniel turned to me. Speaking of firms, I've been thinking. About what? About starting our own company. Park and Wong Design. Architecture and structural engineering under one roof. We'd be unstoppable. My heart started racing. Are you serious? Completely serious. We work well together. We complement each other's strengths. And I think we could build something really special. That's a big step. No. But I'm ready if you are. I thought about it. About what it would mean to tie our professional lives together as well as our personal lives. About the risk and the reward. Yes, I said. Let's do it. Yeah? Yeah, let's build something together. Something that's ours. He kissed me right there at the construction site, in front of contractors and workers and anyone who cared to watch. I love you, he said against my lips. I love you too. That night, we celebrated at his apartment. Champagne and takeout and mochi begging for scraps. We talked about business plans and office spaces and what our company logo should look like. We talked about the future like it was something we were building together. And for the first time in 5 years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we were going to make it. 6 months after our reconciliation, we signed the lease on an office space for Park and Wong Design. It was a converted warehouse in the Arts District, all exposed brick and high. Ceilings and natural light, perfect for what we were building. This is really happening, I said, standing in the empty space, imagining where our drafting tables would go, where we'd put the conference room, where Mochi would have his bed. This is really happening, Daniel agreed. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. Are you scared? Terrified. You? Terrified, but also excited. We're going to do great things here, Elena. We are. We spent the next month setting up the office, furniture shopping, hiring our first employee, a recent graduate named James who reminded me of myself at that age, filing paperwork, designing our logo, a compass rose that incorporated both architectural and engineering elements, building something that was ours. But success brought its own challenges. The first major test came when we landed a huge commercial project, a mixed-use development that would be our biggest commission yet. The client wanted aggressive timelines and had a limited budget. It would require both of us working long hours, sacrificing personal time, pushing ourselves to the limit. We can do this, Daniel said during our first planning meeting. It'll be intense, but we can handle it. Are you sure? This is going to mean late nights, weekends, barely seeing each other outside of work. We'll make it work. This is what we signed up for. He was right. But it couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to test our relationship in ways we hadn't anticipated. The first few weeks were manageable. We worked side by side, fell into an efficient rhythm, supported each other through the stress. But as the deadlines got tighter and the pressure increased, cracks started to show. Daniel became short-tempered when he was tired. I became withdrawn when I was overwhelmed. We stopped having dinner together, stopped going on dates, stopped doing anything except work. We need to talk, I said one night, 3 weeks into the project. It was almost midnight, and we were both still at the office. Can it wait? I need to finish these calculations. No, it can't wait. Daniel, we're falling into a pattern. We're letting work consume us. This is a crucial project. You know that. I do know that. But I also know that if we don't make time for our relationship, we're going to lose it. He set down his pen, rubbed his eyes. What do you want me to do, Elena? The deadline is in 2 weeks. We're behind schedule. I can't just stop working. I'm not asking you to stop working. I'm asking you to find balance. To remember that we're partners in life, not just business partners. I know. That. Do you? Because right now it feels like the only thing that matters to you is this project. That's not fair. This project matters to both of us. It's our company, our future. But what good is a successful company if we destroy our relationship building it? He stared at me for a long moment. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to set boundaries, work hours, date nights, time that's just for us, not for the business. In the middle of our biggest project, especially in the middle of our biggest project, because if we can't maintain our relationship during the hard times, what's the point? He was quiet for a long time. Then you're right. I've been so focused on making the company succeed that I forgot why we started it in the first place. Why did we start it? To build something together, to be partners, to create a life that lets us work side by side. He stood up, came around the desk. I'm sorry, I've been taking you for granted. I'm sorry too. I should have said something sooner instead of letting it build up. See? We're learning. He pulled me into his arms. Okay, new rule. We leave the office by 8 p.m. no matter what. And Sundays are for us, not work. Even with the deadline. We'll figure it out. We always do. Together. The boundaries helped. We still worked hard, but we also made time for each other. Sunday brunches, evening walks with Mochi, stolen kisses in the office when James wasn't looking. We finished the project on time. The client was thrilled, and our relationship survived intact. But the real test came a month later, when I got a call from my mother. Your father's in the hospital, she said, her voice shaking. Heart attack. You need to come. I was on a plane to San Francisco within 3 hours. Daniel came with me, no questions asked. You don't have to come, I said as we boarded. We have that meeting with the new client tomorrow. James can handle it. You need me. I'm coming. Daniel, Elena, stop. This is what partners do. We show up for each other. No arguments. My father was stable by the time we arrived, but it had been close. Too close. My mother was a wreck. My younger brother was trying to hold everything together, and I felt like I was drowning. Daniel was my anchor. He talked to the doctors, asked the questions I couldn't think to ask. He made sure my mother ate. He sat with my father when I needed a break. He held me when I cried in the hospital bathroom, overwhelmed by fear and guilt. I should have visited more, I sobbed into his shoulder. I've been so focused on work, on us, on building the company. I forgot about them. You didn't forget. You've been living your life. That's what they want. But what if he died? What if I never got to tell him? But he didn't die. He's going to be okay. And you're here now, that's what matters. He was right. That the experience shook me. We stayed in San Francisco for a week, until my father was released from the hospital and settled at home. During that time, I watched Daniel interact with my family, saw how gentle he was with my mother, how patient he was with my brother's questions about structural engineering, how respectfully he treated my father, even when my father was grumpy and difficult. Your young man is good, my father said one afternoon when Daniel had gone to get coffee. You should marry him. We're taking it slow, Dad. Life is short. Don't take too long. It was the most my father had said about my personal life in years. On the plane back to LA, I turned to Daniel. Thank you for coming with me, for being there for my family, for being exactly what I needed. That's what love is, Elena. Showing up, being present, supporting each other through the hard things. I know. But I also know that not everyone would have dropped everything to fly across the country for their girlfriend's family emergency. I'm not everyone. And you're not just my girlfriend. You're my partner. Your family is my family. Something in my chest cracked open. I want to marry you. The words came out before I could stop them. Daniel's eyes widened. What? I want to marry you. Not right now. Not tomorrow. But someday. I want to stand in front of our friends and family and promise forever. I want to build a life with you. I want everything. Elena, I know we said we'd take it slow. I know we're still rebuilding trust, but Daniel, this week showed me something. It showed me that you're the person I want beside me through everything. The good and the bad, the easy and the hard, the boring and the terrifying. I want you, all of you, forever." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'd been carrying this for 2 months," he said quietly, "waiting for the right moment, trying to figure out when we'd be ready. But maybe there's no perfect moment. Maybe we just have to trust that we're ready when we're ready." He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not the same ring from 5 years ago, but something new. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds set in platinum. "Elena Park, will you marry me? Again, for real this time?" I was crying, laughing, nodding. "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on my finger, and it fit perfectly. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." We kissed, right there in our airplane seats, while the passenger across the aisle smiled and the flight attendant pretended not to. Watch. When we landed, we called everyone. Priya screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Mina cried. My mother cried. My father said, "Good," and then asked when we were giving him grandchildren. "One thing at a time, Dad." That night, lying in Daniel's bed with Mochi snoring. At our feet, I stared at the ring on my finger. "Are you scared?" Daniel asked. "A little." "You?" "A little, but also sure. More sure than I've ever been about anything." "Me too." I turned to face him. "But Daniel, we need to talk about something. Okay, your father's illness. The genetic component. We never really addressed it." He was quiet for a moment. "I got tested. 6 months ago, I have the gene." My breath caught. "You do?" "Yeah. Which means I have a 50% chance of developing early onset Alzheimer's. Maybe higher." He took my hand. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I was afraid. Afraid you'd leave again. Afraid you'd decide I wasn't worth the risk." "Daniel, but then I realized that if we're going to do this, if we're going to get married and build a life together, you deserve to know what you're signing up for. So I'm telling you now, I might get sick. I might need care. I might not remember you someday. And if that's too much, if you want to walk away, I'll understand." I sat up, looked him directly in the eyes. "Do you remember what you said to me 5 years ago? When I tried to protect you from hard truths, I said I didn't need protection. You said you fell in love with me. All of me. Including the complicated parts. Including the scary parts. Including the parts I thought weren't good enough." I squeezed his hand. "Well, I fell in love with you. All of you. Including the genetic predisposition to a terrible disease. Including the possibility that our future might be harder than we want. Including everything. Elena, I'm not walking away. I'm not making decisions for you. I'm not protecting you from anything. I'm standing beside you and saying, whatever comes, we'll face it together. That's what partners do." He pulled me close, buried his face in my hair. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. And I don't deserve you. But we're choosing each other anyway. That's what love is." We set the wedding date for 6 months later. Small ceremony, close friends and family only. No elaborate plans, no stress. Just a celebration of the love we'd fought so hard to rebuild. The months leading up to the wedding were busy. The company was growing. We hired 2 more employees, took on bigger projects, started making a name for ourselves in the industry. But we also made time for us. Date nights, weekend trips, lazy Sunday mornings in bed, building a life that was about more than just work. 2 months before the wedding, we started looking at houses. "I want a yard for Mochi," Daniel said as we toured a craftsman bungalow in Pasadena, "and a studio for you, and an office for me, and a guest room for when your parents visit, and a big kitchen. I want to learn to cook more, and fireplace for cozy winter nights. We live in LA. We don't have winter. We have winter-adjacent weather. It counts. We found the perfect house 3 weeks later. A 1920s bungalow with original hardwood floors, a renovated kitchen, and a huge backyard. It needed work, but it had good bones. We could design the renovation ourselves," I said, walking through the empty rooms. "Make it exactly what we want. Our first project is a married couple. Our first home, our forever home. We made an offer that day. It was accepted 2 days later. The night before our wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous about marrying Daniel, but because I kept thinking about the night 5 years ago when I'd made the choice to lie to him, when I thought I was protecting him but was really just protecting myself from the fear of not being enough. I thought about how much we'd both changed, how much we'd grown, how much we'd learned about trust and honesty and partnership. I thought about the future we were building, the company, the house, the life we'd create together. And I thought about the possibility that someday Daniel might get sick, that I might have to care for him, that he might not remember me. But I also thought about what he'd said, that he fell in love with me, all of me, including the complicated parts. And I realized that I felt the same way, that I'd rather have 20 years with Daniel, even if some of them were hard, than a lifetime without him. That love wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about choosing to face it together. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Can't sleep either. No. Too excited. Want to break tradition and see each other before the wedding? Absolutely not. We're doing this right this time. Okay. But Elena? Yes? I can't wait to marry you tomorrow. I can't wait to marry you either. Sleep well, future Mrs. Wong. I'm keeping my name, remember? Sleep well, future Mrs. Park, who is also my wife. Better. Sleep well, future Mr. who is also my husband. I love you. I love you too. I fell asleep, with a smile on my face, the ring on my finger catching the moonlight, my heart full of hope for the future we were about to begin. The morning of the wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows of the hotel room and Priya shaking my shoulder. Wake up, bride. You're getting married today. I sat up, looked at the dress hanging on the closet door and felt a wave of emotion so strong it almost knocked me over. I'm getting married today, I repeated. You're getting married today, Priya confirmed. How do you feel? Happy, scared, grateful, like I'm about to start the rest of my life. Good. That's exactly how you should feel. She handed me a cup of coffee. Now drink this and let's get you ready to marry the love of your life. The ceremony was in a garden at a small venue in Malibu. 50 guests. White chairs arranged in rows, an arch covered in flowers. The ocean visible in the distance. Simple, perfect, ours. My father walked me down the aisle, his steps slower than they used to be, but steady. My mother cried. My brother filmed everything on his phone. Mina stood as Daniel's best woman, beaming. And Daniel stood at the altar in a navy suit, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. When I reached him, my father placed my hand in Daniel's and whispered, "Take care of each other." "We will," we said together. The officiant began. We're gathered here today to celebrate the love between Elena and Daniel. A love that has weathered storms, overcome obstacles, and emerged stronger than ever. I looked at Daniel, saw tears in his eyes, felt my own starting to fall. Elena and Daniel have chosen to write their own vows, the officiant continued. Daniel, would you like to go first? Daniel took both my hands, took a deep breath, and began. Elena, 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. I thought the woman I loved had betrayed me, and I spent years trying to understand why, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, trying to move on. His voice cracked. But I couldn't move on, because even when I hated you, I loved you. Even when I was angry, I missed you. Even when I tried to forget, I remembered. And then you told me the truth, and I realized that the story I'd been carrying wasn't the real story, that you'd made a terrible choice out of love, not malice, that you'd sacrificed yourself because you thought it would save me. He squeezed my hands. You were wrong. You didn't save me. You broke me. But you also taught me something important, that love without trust is just fear, in disguise. I was crying now, tears streaming down my face. So today, I'm making you a promise to trust you, to believe that you're strong enough to handle hard truths, to respect you enough to let you make your own choices. I promise to be your partner, not your protector, your equal, not your savior. I promise to show up for you every day in every way I can. And I promise to love you, all of you, for the rest of my life, however long that life may be." He was crying, too, now. Both of us a mess. Both of us not caring. The officiant handed me a tissue, which made everyone laugh. "Elena, your turn." I took a shaky breath. "Daniel, 5 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I thought I was being noble, self-sacrificing, protective. But really, I was just scared. Scared of not being enough. Scared of holding you back. Scared of loving you so much that losing you would destroy me. So I made sure I'd lose you on my terms. I lied to you. I broke your heart. I convinced myself it was for your own good. And I spent 5 years living with that lie, carrying that guilt, wondering if I'd made the right choice. I looked into his eyes. I didn't. It was the wrong choice, the cowardly choice. The choice that hurt us both more than the truth ever could have. But you gave me a second chance. You let me explain. You listened when you could have walked away. You forgave me when you had every right to hate me forever. And you taught me something important, that real love isn't about protecting each other from pain. It's about facing pain together. I squeezed his hands. So today I'm making you a promise. I promise to trust you, to believe that you can handle whatever life throws at us, to respect you enough to be honest, even when the truth is hard. I promise to be your partner, not your martyr, your equal, not your burden. I promise to show up for you every day in every way I can. And I promise to love you, all of you, for the rest of my life, however complicated that life may be. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives. I promise to build a life with you that's based on honesty, trust, and partnership. I promise to never make decisions for you again. And I promise to love you fiercely and completely until my last breath. Efficient was crying now, too. Half the guests were crying. "By the power vested in me," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I now pronounce you married. You may kiss." Daniel pulled me close, cupped my face in his hands, and kissed me like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Maybe he had been. Maybe we both had been. The reception was a blur of happiness. Dancing, toasts, Mochi wearing a bow tie and stealing appetizers from unsuspecting guests. My father telling embarrassing stories about my childhood. Mina telling embarrassing stories about Daniel's childhood. Priya's toast that made everyone cry and laugh at the same time. "To Elena and Daniel," she said, raising her glass, "who proved that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that fall apart, get put back together, who show us that forgiveness is possible, that second chances are real, that love, real love, is worth fighting for." Everyone cheered. Later, during our first dance, Daniel pulled me close and whispered, "Happy. Happier than I've ever been. You?" "Same." He spun me around. "Mrs. Park. Mr. Wang. Partners. We honeymooned in Japan. 2 weeks of exploring Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, eating incredible food, visiting temples, getting lost in neighborhoods where no one spoke English and we had to communicate through gestures and laughter. It was perfect. On our last night, we sat on the balcony of our hotel room in Kyoto, watching the city lights, drinking sake, talking about the future. "I want to start trying for a baby," I said. "Soon. Not right away, but soon." Daniel looked at me. "Even knowing about the genetic risk?" "Especially knowing about the genetic risk. Because, Daniel, if we have a child and they inherit the gene, they'll also inherit something else. Parents who love them unconditionally. Parents who will face whatever comes together. Parents who will teach them that life is complicated and scary and beautiful, and that the only way through it is with honesty and trust and love. You're going to be an amazing mother. You're going to be an amazing father. Even if I get sick, even if you get sick, we'll figure it out. Together, he repeated like a prayer. We returned to LA and threw ourselves into our life. The company continued to grow. We hired more staff, took on bigger projects, won awards, made a name for ourselves. We renovated our house room by room, making it exactly what we wanted. A studio for me with perfect natural light, an office for Daniel with built-in bookshelves, a kitchen where we learned to cook together, a yard where Mochi and his new brother, a senior rescue named Bao, could play. We hosted dinner parties, went on double dates with Priya and her girlfriend, visited my parents every month, had Sunday brunches with Mina. We built a life. And 6 months after the wedding, I got pregnant. The pregnancy was hard, morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made working difficult, anxiety about the genetic testing, about whether our baby would inherit Daniel's gene. But Daniel was there for all of it, holding my hair when I was sick, taking over my projects when I was too tired, rubbing my feet when they swelled, talking to my belly about structural engineering and making me laugh. "You're going to be a great dad," I said one night, lying in bed, his hand on my growing stomach. "You think? I know. You're patient and kind and loving. You show up. You're present. That's what matters." "I'm scared," he admitted. "What if I get sick before they're grown? What if I can't remember them? What if, then we'll deal with it together." "But Daniel, you can't live your life in fear of what might happen. You have to live in the present, be here now, with me, with our baby. That's all we can do." He kissed my forehead. "When did you get so wise?" "When I spent 5 years learning the hard way that trying to control the future only destroys the present." Our daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in March, 7 pounds 3 ounces. Perfect. Beautiful. Ours. We named her Grace. Grace Wong Park. "Because grace is what we gave each other," Daniel said, holding her for the breath. First time, tears streaming down his face. "Grace is what saved us." I watched him with our daughter, saw the love in his eyes, and felt my heart expand in ways I didn't know were possible. We did the genetic testing when Grace was 6 months old. The waiting period was torture. 2 weeks of wondering, worrying, trying not to think about what the results might mean. When the call came, we were in our backyard watching Grace play on a blanket. While Mochi and Bao supervised, Daniel answered, put it on speaker. "Mr. Son speaker. Wong, we have your daughter's results. She did not inherit the gene. She has no increased risk for early onset Alzheimer's." We both started crying. Relief, gratitude, joy. "Thank you," Daniel managed. "Thank you so much." After he hung up, we held each other for a long time, Grace. Between us, our little family complete. "She's going to be okay," I whispered. "She's going to be okay," he agreed. Grace is 3 now, smart, curious, obsessed with building blocks and drawing. She has Daniel's eyes and my stubbornness and both of our love for creating things. The company is thriving. We have 15 employees now, multiple ongoing projects, a reputation for innovative, sustainable design. Our house is full of life, toys in every room, drawings on the fridge, 2 dogs who think they're Grace's personal bodyguards, laughter and chaos and love. Daniel is healthy, no signs of illness. We don't know what the future holds, but we've learned not to borrow trouble. From tomorrow, we take it one day at a time, together. Last week we had dinner with Priya and her wife. Grace was at my parents' house for the night, giving us a rare evening alone. "You two seem happy," Priya observed. "Really happy." "We are," I said, taking Daniel's hand. "It's nice to see. After everything you went through, you deserve it." "We do," Daniel agreed. "But you know what? I don't regret it. Any of it." I looked at him in surprise. "You don't regret the breakup? The 5 years apart?" "No, because those 5 years taught us things we needed to learn. They taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive heartbreak, that I can build a life on my own. And they taught you that I can't control everything, that trying to protect people from pain sometimes causes more pain, that trust is more important than protection." Exactly. We needed to break to learn how to be whole. We needed to lose each other to understand what we had. He squeezed my hand. "I wouldn't change anything, because everything led us here, to this life, this family, this love. People ask me sometimes if I have any regrets, if I wish I'd made different choices 5 years ago. The truth is complicated. I regret lying to Daniel. I regret the pain I caused. I regret the 5 years we lost. But I don't regret what those 5 years taught us, about ourselves, about each other. about what it really means to be partners. I learned that love isn't about sacrifice, it's about choice. Choosing to show up, choosing to be honest, choosing to trust, choosing to face the hard things together instead of trying to protect each other from them. I learned that you can't control the future. You can only control how you respond to it. I learned that forgiveness is possible, but it takes work, time, patience, commitment. I learned that second chances are real, but you have to earn them. You have to prove through your actions that you've changed, that you've learned, that you're willing to do better. And I learned that the strongest relationships aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones that break and get put back together, stronger than before. If you're listening to this and any part of it sounds familiar, if you've ever made a choice you regret, if you've ever hurt someone you love, if you ever wondered if it's too late to fix things, I want you to know something. It's not too late. As long as you're both willing to do the work, as long as you're both committed to honesty and trust and partnership, as long as you both choose each other every day, it's not too late. But you have to be brave. You have to be willing to face hard truths. You have to be willing to admit when you're wrong. You have to be willing to forgive even when it's hard. You have to be willing to trust even when you're scared. And most importantly, you have to be willing to let go of control, to stop trying to protect each other from pain, to stop making decisions for each other, to stop thinking you know what's best. Because real love isn't about protection, it's about partnership. It's about standing beside someone and saying, whatever comes, we'll face it together. It's about trusting that they're strong enough to handle the truth. It's about respecting them enough to let them make their own choices. It's about showing up every day in every way you can. Last night, Daniel and I were putting Grace to bed. She asked us to tell her a story, and Daniel said, once upon a time there was a princess who loved a prince very much, but she was scared, so she told him a lie, and the lie broke both their hearts. That's a sad story, Daddy, Grace said. It is sad, but it doesn't end there, because the prince and the princess found each other again, and this time they told each other the truth, and the truth healed their hearts, and they lived happily ever after. I like that ending better, Grace said. Me too, baby. Me too. After she fell asleep, Daniel and I stood in her doorway watching her, breathe, marveling at the life we'd created. Do you think we'll really live happily ever after? I asked. I think we'll live, Daniel said. And some days will be happy, and some days will be hard, and some days will be both. But we'll live them together, and that's enough. He was right. It was enough. It was everything. This morning I woke up to Daniel making breakfast, Grace singing too. Herself in her room, Mochi and Bao wrestling in the hallway. I lay in bed for a moment, listening to the sounds of my family, feeling grateful for this life we built. I thought about the girl I was 5 years ago, the one whose outline was love, the one who thought protection was partnership, the one who was so scared of not being enough that she pushed away the one person who'd always thought she was everything. I thought about how far I'd come, how much I'd learned, how much I'd grown, and I thought about the future, about the life Daniel and I are building, about the challenges we'll face, about the joy we'll share, about the love that will carry us through it all. I don't know what's coming. None of us do, but I know this, whatever comes, we'll face it together. As partners, as equals, as two people who chose each other, not once, but over and over again, every single day, and that's the real happy ending, not the absence of problems, not the promise of perfection, but the commitment to face whatever comes together. I got out of bed, walked into the kitchen, and wrapped my arms around Daniel from behind. Good morning, he said, turning to kiss me. Good morning, I replied. Coffee, please. He poured me a cup exactly how I like it. Because he knows me, because he pays attention, because he shows up. Grace ran into the kitchen demanding pancakes. Mochi barked at a squirrel outside. Bao knocked over his water bowl. It was chaos. It was perfect. It was ours. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Well, maybe I'd change one thing. If I could go back 5 years, I'd tell that scared girl, trust him. Tell him the truth. Let him make his own choices. Stop trying to control the future and just be present in the moment. Stop thinking you're not enough and start believing that love, real love, is about being enough together. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward, learn from our mistakes, do better, be better, love better, and trust that the people we love are strong enough to handle the truth. Because they are. We all are. We're stronger than we think, braver than we believe, more capable than we imagine. And when we stop trying to protect each other and start trusting each other, when we stop making decisions for each other and start making decisions with each other, when we stop thinking we know what's best and start listening to what our partners actually need, that's when real love begins. That's when partnership becomes possible. That's when happily ever after stops being a fairy tale and starts being a choice we make every single day. So if you're listening to this, if you're in a relationship that's broken or breaking, if you're carrying secrets or lies or fears, if you're trying to protect someone you love from hard truths, I'm asking you to stop. Stop protecting. Start trusting. Stop controlling. Start partnering. Stop sacrificing yourself. Start showing up as yourself. Because the person you love doesn't need a martyr. They need a partner. And you deserve to be loved for who you are, not for how much you're willing to sacrifice. You deserve honesty even when it's hard. You deserve trust even when it's scary. You deserve partnership even when it's complicated. We all do. Daniel just called me to the table. Pancakes are ready. Grace is demanding syrup. The dogs are begging for scraps. My life is calling. My beautiful, complicated, imperfect, perfect life. The life I almost threw away because I was too scared to trust. The life I got back because I was brave enough to tell the truth. The life I'm building, one day at a time, with the man I love and the family we created. This is my happy ending, not because everything is perfect, but because I'm finally brave enough to face the imperfect parts. Together, with my partner, my equal, my love, and that's enough. That's everything. Coming, I call out, and I walk into the kitchen, into the chaos, into the love, into the life. Chosen that chose me back, into my happily ever after. One imperfect, beautiful day at a time,